In the icy expanses of the Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union of 1959, a group of 9 experienced ski hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, embarked on an expedition that would become one of the greatest unknowns of the 20th century. This group, composed of students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, was known for their expertise and preparation for harsh winter conditions. The expedition, initially 10 members strong, saw one of them, Yuri Yudin, turn back due to health problems, a twist of fate that, unknowingly, would save his life. Dyatlov had promised to send the telegram to the sports club by February 12 to confirm their return. When the date passed without news, a massive rescue operation was launched involving volunteer students, teachers, the army, and the militia, police. What they found on February 26th on the eastern slope of Kolatsiakul, the Dead Mountain, would defy all logic and become the starting point of a mystery that endures to this day. The group's tent was half collapsed, covered in snow, but most disturbing was that it had been cut open from the inside. All belongings and shoes were left inside, as if their occupants had fled in blind, incomprehensible panic. The observation that the tent was cut from the inside is a crucial detail that immediately rules out an external attack and points to an internal threat or a desperate escape. 9 sets of footprints, barefoot or wearing a single shoe, led away from the tent, heading towards the nearby forest, 1.5 kilometers away. Under a Siberian pine, the first 2 bodies were found, Krivonishenko and Doroshenko, dressed only in underwear despite temperatures between -25 and -30 degrees Celsius. The pine branches were broken up to 5 meters high, suggesting a desperate attempt to look for something or escape from something in the darkness of the night. Between the pine and the camp, 3 more bodies were found, Dyatlov, Kolmogova, and Slobodin, in poses indicating they were trying to return to the tent, succumbing to the extreme cold. But the true horror came with the discovery of the remaining 4 bodies 2 months later, on May 4th, under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters from the pine tree. These presented fatal injuries, Thibaut Brignol with massive skull damage, and Dubinina and Zolotaryov with severe chest fractures, comparable to those from a car crash. Most chilling was the absence of external wounds to justify such force. Furthermore, Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips, and Zolotaryov was missing his eyeballs. The combination of hypothermia with such severe internal traumas and the lack of soft tissue in some bodies creates a forensic situation that defies any simple explanation. This suggests a complex, multifaceted event where an initial force caused non-lethal but incapacitating injuries, leading to a desperate flight and eventual death by exposure. The 1959 Soviet investigation concluded that the deaths were caused by an irresistible natural force, closing the case and classifying the files until the 1970s. This lack of transparency and the deliberate suppression of information, such as lead investigator Lev Ivanov's admission that he received orders to dismiss sightings of strange orange spheres in the sky that night, inevitably undermined public trust and created a vacuum that was quickly filled by alternative theories. The official narrative, even when updated by a 2019-2020 Russian reinvestigation that concluded a slab avalanche was the most probable cause, forcing a panicked evacuation and subsequent hypothermia, still struggles to gain full acceptance. Arguments against it persist: the low slope of the terrain, the absence of typical avalanche signs, and the hiker's experience who would hardly have camped in an avalanche risk zone. The Dyatlov Pass case is a grim reminder that nature, in its most brutal form, can overcome even the most prepared, leaving an enigma that resonates through the decades. Disappearances don't just happen on snowy peaks or in dense forests. Sometimes the earth swallows its victims from below, in the dark and labyrinthine depths of its caves. This is the case of Ben McDaniel, an experienced diver who disappeared in the depths of Vortex Spring, Florida, in August 2010. Vortex Spring is a natural spring popular for diving, which conceals a vast and complex system of underwater caves, known for their extremely narrow passages, some only 25 centimeters wide. Ben, 30, was a passionate and experienced diver since he was 15, with a history of mapping cave systems. He had moved to his parents' beach house in Florida, seeking a respite after a divorce, a failed business, and the tragic death of his younger brother 2 years prior. These personal circumstances add a layer of ambiguity to his disappearance, suggesting that the earth swallowing its victims could also be interpreted not only as a physical act of nature, but also as a metaphor for a deliberate self-disappearance. On August 18, 2010, Ben spent the day at Vortex Spring. He made a daytime dive examining the cave entrance and was seen testing his equipment and making notes in his dive log. That evening, after speaking with his mother on the phone, he prepared for another dive. He was last seen by 2 dive shop employees, Chuck Cronin and Eduardo Tarrin, descending into the cave at 18 meters deep. Tarrin, who suspected Ben was forcing the cave gate, opened it for him and watched him enter. No one has seen him since. 2 days later, on August 20, Ben's truck was still in the Vortex Spring parking lot. His wallet with almost $1,100 in cash and his cell phone were in the cab. His dive logs and a map of the cave he had drawn were also found. His dog, Spooner, was hungry at the beach house, which led police and employees to assume he had drowned in the cave. However, the search in the cave, despite the efforts of multiple divers, revealed no trace of his body. Most strangely, 2 of his dive tanks were found near the cave entrance, and a third at 61 meters deep. These tanks contained normal air, not the specialized gas mix required for diving at those depths. This contradiction between the diver's experience and the evidence found is highly unusual and shifts the interpretation of the disappearance from a simple accident to something much more complex. It suggests a sudden emergency, a manipulation of the scene, or a deliberate act of staging. Theories about Ben McDaniel's disappearance are as murky as the cave waters. Did he get trapped in an unreachable passage? Was it a tragic accident complicated by the difficult environment? Or, given his recent personal struggles, could he have faked his own death to start a new life? His loved ones, however, doubt he would have abandoned his dog. Another unsettling theory suggests foul play, even murder, with his body being removed before authorities were contacted. Although the employees who last saw him passed polygraph tests, the mystery of where Ben McDaniel is or what truly happened to him remains unanswered. The inability to find a body in such a challenging environment allows ambiguity to persist, leaving the door open to multiple narratives without a definitive resolution. Some places on our planet seem to have a magnetic quality for the inexplicable, attracting and then retaining those who venture into them. The Bennington Triangle in Vermont is one such place, a mountainous region with a disturbing series of unsolved disappearances between 1945 and 1950, which left an indelible mark on the history of missing persons investigations. This concentration of events in a specific area suggests a possible environmental anomaly or an unknown factor that acts repeatedly. On December 1, 1946, Paula Jean Weldon, an 18-year-old student from Bennington College, went for a walk on the Long Trail, a hiking route near Glastonbury Mountain. She was seen by several hikers on the trail, even asking them about the route. She was wearing clothes suitable for the afternoon, but not for the nighttime temperature drop. She carried no extra luggage or money, indicating she did not expect to be out for long. She simply vanished. When she did not return, her roommate raised the alarm. A massive search was launched with hundreds of volunteers, the National Guard, and firefighters, covering the Long Trail and its surroundings. Despite the efforts, not a single trace of Paula was found. Paula's disappearance was so shocking and the investigation so frustrating due to the lack of an organized state police agency and the inexperience of local authorities that it directly led to the creation of the Vermont State Police in 1947. This tragic event acted as a catalyst for significant institutional change, demonstrating how an inexplicable individual tragedy can drive systemic improvement in public safety. Paula's disappearance was not an isolated incident. A year earlier, on November 12, 1945, Mitty Rivers, an experienced hunting guide, disappeared in Hell Hollow between Bald and Glastonbury Mountains. In 1949, James Tedford, a World War I veteran, vanished from a moving bus near Manchester, with some passengers swearing they saw him get back on the bus after the stop. In 1950, Paul Jepson, an 8-year-old boy, disappeared while his mother was feeding pigs. His father mentioned that the boy had had a yen to go into the mountains weeks earlier. And, perhaps most baffling, was the case of Frida Langer, an experienced hiker and camper who disappeared on October 28, 1950. Her body, in an advanced state of decomposition, was found on May 12, 1951, in an open area that had been repeatedly searched. Her body was complete, with no signs of scavengers, which was particularly strange, as the absence of animal predation on a body exposed for months in nature is anomalous. This detail of the anomalous reappearance in an already combed area defies the logic of search and rescue operations, suggesting that the environment not only conceals, but can also reveal in inexplicable ways, reinforcing the notion of an active mystery in the region. What invisible force operates in the Bennington Triangle, attracting some and holding others in a veil of mystery? The persistent lack of definitive answers in these cases, despite extensive investigations and modern advancements, highlights the limits of human inquiry when confronted with truly anomalous events. The human need for explanation and closure clashes with the reality that some mysteries simply do not offer easy solutions, leaving an open wound of curiosity and unease. These cases are not just unsolved files, they are echoes of a primordial mystery, the question that has haunted humanity since the beginning of time. What truly happens when the Earth swallows its victims? Are they simple tragedies, extreme natural phenomena, or is there something more? Something lurking in the shadows of the unknown, waiting for its next moment to claim?